Think about the last time you watched someone perform at an elite level under lots of pressure, right? Maybe this was an athlete. What comes to mind for me is recently when OG Anunoby soared through the air, tipped in the game-winning shot in Game 4 of the NBA Finals.
101. Brunson gets it, fires up a three. Shot no good. The chip, it's gone. It's gone.
Maybe it was Messi, who just recently scored a hat trick in the World Cup.
Messi flying forward. Leo Messi!
Or maybe it had nothing to do with sports. Maybe it was your coworker who just recently crushed a big pitch to the company.
It works like magic. You don't need a stylus. It's far more accurate than any touch display that's ever been shipped.
Maybe it was an artist who captivated an entire crowd with their performance. At times it can feel like these people are just born with some special talent, right? They just have some magical it factor. And while this does play a role, right, we're all born with some set of genetics and a certain set of cards in life. At the end of the day, anyone at the top of any field will tell you that it takes a lot more than just talent to get there. Right, so something this channel is built on is elite performance is not something we are just born with. It is something that you can train, and it's something that you can build upon. So when I say building one's performance, right, what do I even mean by this, and what does this look like in practice? Well, to me, performance can be really simplified into two main parts. Right, you kind of have your physical side of performance and you have your mental side of performance. And on this channel, I'll be focused on the mental side of performance, as this is what I'm really passionate about, and I'm currently in graduate school studying to go into the field of sports psychology. And you may be thinking, well, what even is sports psychology? And how I like to define it is it's the study of how to train the mind in order to optimize performance. Now, with that being said, right, we live in a world that is clearly much more focused on the physical side of performance, right? We like to track our calories and go on diets and follow certain workout plans and hire personal trainers and even wear wearable tech. And here's the thing, I totally get it, right? I'm a big proponent of a lot of these things, and quite frankly, they work, right? When you train your body, when you train that physical side of performance, you get results. And the same thing goes for the mental side of performance, right? You can train the mind just in similar ways as you can train the body. But unfortunately, a lot of people still allow stigma and other factors to stop them from ever even investing in their minds in the first place. And it doesn't help that a lot of people think, you should only look to work with someone within the field of sports psychology if you are really struggling within your performance.
I said,
oh my God, what the?
And I'm telling you right now, this cannot be further from the truth, right? Just as you can always get stronger, right? You can always get faster. The same thing goes for mental skills, right? You can always get better. In most performances, you never just reach a level where you're like, okay, I'm done. I can't improve anymore, right? So you can always improve your level of focus, your confidence, your emotional regulation, your resilience, right? The list goes on. Many of the best performers in the world understand this. And despite being at the top of their field, they still invest in their mind by training their mental skills, even though it is challenging and takes a lot of hard work.
the work mentally is much more difficult than you work physically. I work in the gym almost every day, 1.5 hours. Sometimes I go home, most of the time I go home, I work again. But it's so hard to keep working in your mental thing.
As you just heard from Mo Salah, training one's mind is very challenging. And I think one of the reasons why it is so challenging is because progress is not as visible and it's not as black and white compared to training physical skills, right? So if I were training for a 5K, a half marathon, a marathon, it's pretty simple, right? The more you run, the more you see your times go down, and that's a great feeling. And if I'm in the gym and I'm training a squat or a bench press, I see, the weight go up. And that is just a great feeling. And I think with mental skills, right, although there are ways to track growth, it's not going to be as visible. And so I think when you combine how mental skills and anything to do with the mind is so stigmatized, the progress isn't as visible, and it is really challenging and at times uncomfortable to work on. I think it makes sense why mental skills are overlooked. But in my own life, I've seen how powerful and effective mental skills training can be, not only really doing those skills on myself, but then also working on it with my clients, reading up on it, seeing case studies. And so I think one of the goals of this channel is to really shrink that gap between how much weight and how much value we put on training the physical side of performance, and how oftentimes we overlook or don't truly value the mental side of performance.
In order to be your best, you need to maximize your physical, your mental, and your emotional.
Tom Brady, the greatest football player of all time, says there's 3 components to greatness: mental, emotional, and physical. Right? But most of us only focus on the physical aspect. So think about the biggest performance in your own life. What percentage of that performance is mental? And how are you even defining greatness within that performance? But let's hear what Tom Aspinall, the UFC heavyweight champion of the world, has to say about it.
I would say the training aspect is probably around 80% physical and 20% mental, the training aspect. On fight night, when you are in that arena and you have got them bright lights beaming down on you and you can hear the crowd going crazy and you know that there's millions of people watching you, I believe it completely flips and becomes about 80+% mental. Okay, so even though I just asked you what percentage of your performance is mental, and then I showed you a clip of the UFC heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall breaking down what percentage he thinks is mental, the exact percentage you came up with and what Tom Aspinall thinks and what I think, it doesn't really matter, right? Because depending on the skill that we're performing, the percentage is going to look different, right? And depending on who you ask, that percentage is going to look different, right? You might have someone look at a scale and say, it's 10%. And then you might have someone say, what, it's 99% mental, right? So I think what's more important is that we all understand that the mind does play a role in performance. So with this channel, MWM Performance, I'll be breaking down certain mental performance skills, explaining the psychology behind these skills, and then doing deep dives on performers who I think really excel or embody said mental skills. And then finally, I'll be asking you all, the viewers, to really think critically, right, about how are these mental skills showing up in your own lives, right? Because at the end of the day, we are all performers. We all have to perform in some aspect within our daily lives. So if this is of any interest to you, please subscribe to my channel, drop a comment with any questions you might have, or shoot me an email. I'll be posting every Sunday, and remember, mental work matters.